Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Jones. I'm with the University of Arizona, Gila County, and I am happy to be able to host the Payson Community Gardens spring gardening classes. And we are starting this week with Glen Mccombs. And Glen's going to talk about how to wake up your garden. A little bit about the Garden and Country Extension webinar series. It's a weekly Zoom webinar, 60 minutes or less, Thursdays at 11 o'clock. And starting today from February 11 to April 15, I'm hosting the spring gardening classes for the Payson Community Garden in Northern Gila County, Arizona. Now, while these webinars or classes are really geared towards helping gardeners at the community garden, I know all Arizona gardeners and beyond can take this information and help apply it to what they do. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll be going over really gardening for the next several weeks into April. You can find these recordings at the University of Arizona Cooperative Extension YouTube channel. I'm asking them to create a Payson Community Garden playlist. And so there'll be a special place where we'll have all these together. And just a reminder that the University of Arizona is an equal opportunity affirmative action institution. Here's our agenda for today. Thank you for those of you who joined early. That's our kind of our login and lag time. You can hear me visit with our presenter. My name is Chris Jones. I'm your moderator, the cooperative extension agent for Gila County from the University of Arizona. We have Glen Mccombs to talk about how to wake up your garden here in just a few minutes. Afterwards, we'll do our question and answer session with Glen. You can put your questions into the chat box or the Q&A, and we'll feed those back and forth. And I've already put an evaluation link into the chat box. If you find that, it'll help me a great deal if you just fill that out at the end of the program here and just give me some direction on how the programs are going. Here's our speaker today. Glen Mccombs is the proprietor of the Plant Fair Nursery in Star Valley, Arizona, and went to his website and pulled this off of there. He just last year, best of the rim, best business person in Star Valley. So this is your Payson Roundup Readers Poll. So popular and generous and constant resource in the community, as everybody in Payson and Rim Country knows. Glen has been operating the Plant Fair Nursery since 1983. Some things that he's helped to initiate in the community includes the High Country Xeriscape Council, which really helped people to look at how to garden and conserve water, as well as the Payson Community Garden, which we're going to be talking about today. Here's Glen. Glen, and one thing that we have going on today, Glen and the team at the Payson Community Garden put together a nice video. And I'm going to be bringing that video up, and we're going to be watching that for about 20 minutes. It's his presentation, telling you how to wake up your garden. But before I open that up, I just want to say hi, Glen. And,
hi.
And you know, I understand you had some troubles with a little bit of snow when you were trying to get these videos started. So just to give us a little talk here on your side, and we'll get started in just a moment.
Well, yeah, we thought we had plenty of time to do our video, and every time we made arrangements to go on out to the garden, there was probably good 6-8 inches of snow on the garden plot. So we had to back off until we had a good sunny day, which was actually last Monday. So we kind of hurried through it. And this is absolutely our first video. So pardon me, I talk way too fast. So I need to slow down. So I'll have to do that too in the next one if we do it next one.
Well, this is new for us. You know, we're excited about being able to offer these classes this way. We typically did them right there on site or at the church next door, but with COVID-19 social distancing protocols, we've agreed to present them online, and I'm really happy to be able to do this. So without further ado, we're going to see the first video. We'll be learning from it and hopefully be able to do some more. And here we go. So let's start it up.
Hi, and welcome to Payson Community Garden. The garden is located on Tyler Parkway, and the property is owned by the Church of the Nazarene, which has given the community garden the use of the garden rent-free. The garden consists of 165 6-foot by 25-foot gardens, plus 6 4x4 gardens that are raised for handicap use, and 8 4x8 gardens that are for those who just want smaller gardens. Water is provided by 3 water systems. One is an automatic system, and the second would be for hand watering. The idea of the garden is to offer a safe and sustainable place for people to garden. 20% of the vegetables grown within the garden are given to the community banks. And as of right now, there is about 60,000 pounds that have been donated so far. The garden was created and is now operated by all volunteers. Welcome to the garden. Welcome to Payson Community Garden again. We're now at my plot at the Payson Community Garden, where we're going to talk about waking up your garden. So I'm just going to demonstrate some of the things that I do to get it ready for spring. So last fall, we did put in a whole bunch of chicken manure in this garden. We dug it all up. We added just a little bit of biology besides the chicken manure. Maybe I think we put a little more steer manure in there, and some organic fertilizer. And so that's what we did, and then we raked it all real good, and then we let it rest all winter long. So now we're back at the garden again, and to save a little bit of time, I already dug this one part of the garden up, and but I'm going to now see what I've got. So in order to check it out, I just get right down and get dirty. I'll get down into the garden and take my hands and dig it up like this and just see what all I've got. And it's looking real good. Lots and lots of granite in here, lots of organic, and lots of compost. You can feel, and it's retained its moisture, probably from the last snow we had. So that's one of the first things I do. I also look for worms. However, it looks like the worms must be down low because I'm not sensing any right away. One of the ways that you can tell what the content of this is, besides just taking your hands and lifting it up and to see what all is in there, is the mason jar, which is this right here. We call this the mason jar content, I guess, is how you describe it. And what I do is I just take a little bit of dirt, like so, out of here, soil, get about yay much in the jar, and then I'm going to take water and fill it up the rest of the way, and then from there shake it up real good. And what will happen is the big stuff will all go to the bottom. The smaller stuff will then be a stratus, well, whatever that word is, straight along here, and then there'll be organic, and there'll be compost on top of that. So that's basically how we're going to find out how and what is in this, and how what we're going to do to if there's any correction or anything that we need to do. So from there we'll go on over to the table and we'll look and see if we can figure out what's in this ground. So here we are at the workbench, and what I would have done is taken home my jar and with all the dirt in it, and gone to my workbench, and then I would have set this up so that this would set up a good day, probably at least 24 hours. And what would happen in that 24 hours is just like we talked about, all of the particles would all go to the bottom, and then we would just have water up in here. And the water would have its nutrients in it also, and that's pretty much what we are going to test. So when I look at this, what I'm seeing is granite, maybe even pea-sized gravel in here, and I'm also seeing smaller rocks, and I'm seeing sand, and then I'm seeing some black soil, and then there's a layer of what looks like might be compost, and then there's what I call floaties, which is compost which hasn't composted yet. It's still in the process. So there's not a whole lot of compost in there. I'm going to say that this soil is pretty much the way I want it. There's about this much actual dirt or granite, and then there's this much compost in it. So it'd be a little hard to see probably on that video, but from this angle I can see the perspective there. So I now know that we're going to need some more compost in there, even though it's pretty much right on. I like it about 50-50, so it's pretty much right on for the kind of soil that I want to work with. So now that I've done that, I've let it sit for 24 hours. What I'm going to do now is a soil test. So what I've done is we'll use a soil test kit that looks like this. Inexpensive, about $7. And this will give us our pH, it'll give us our nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash. And those are the basics of what we need to know in a garden. Now, please understand, you don't have to do this every year. If you're interested in what you want to, what's going on with your garden and things that you can do to improve it, then these are always good tools that you can use to get that done. What I've done is, for the sake of time, I've already done this the soil test at my own workbench. And so what happens is this is the pH, and because it was done a little while ago, it's kind of lost a little bit of its color. But on this chart here, it has come out to be right at about 6 on the pH. And if you look at any literature that's written about gardening and about vegetable gardening, 6 is just about ideal. So I'm going to say my pH is right on. I don't need to do anything to correct it. The next thing is nitrogen, which is this one here, and its coloration shows me that it's just a little bit low. So in the light, if you look at it, it matches just about right in there. It's not very low, but it is low. So we will need to add some nitrogen to get this back up again for the benefit of the plant. So that's how we handle nitrogen. Then phosphorus would be the next one. The coloration on that in the light shows that it's very low. So it's going to need some phosphorus. And I'll show you in a second which one we would use for that. Then the last is potash, which would be this one here. And it's also in the light again, showing a very, very low on potash. Not out because I've got color, but it is low. So we're going to need to show how we're going to combat that. So as always, when we're doing everything organically, we're not using any chemicals at all. Our number one thing for well, first of all, for pH, we know that it's 6. We don't have to do anything. If we did have to do something, we could add sulfur. That would change the pH. We could use gypsum. So the pH then is already taken care of, and so the next thing we were concerned about was the nitrogen. So in terms of nitrogen, because it was low, then we're going to add blood meal. And blood meal is our about 12% nitrogen. So that'll give us quite a bit of nitrogen to get the plant started. The next thing is phosphorus, and for phosphorus, the go-to is bone meal, and that's run at about a 10% phosphorus content. So this one and this one added together is going to be what it's going to take to pull this up a little bit. Then this langonite is going to be its potash. So this will be our NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash. The great thing about this one is it also has sulfur in it, and it also has magnesium. And all of those are necessary within our soils here in Arizona. So that's going to pretty much take care of figuring out what's in our ground and how to correct it. So we'll be adding these to it as we go along. Because mine is not that low, but it is low, I probably will not add that until I get ready to plant itself. But while we're here and while we're at the bench, we can look at some of these other products, because there's an awful lot of organic products that are a mystery to most people. Like, why do I need these things? And so we're just going to talk a little bit about them. And this, of course, is just standard. If you use just these along with compost and lots of compost every year, you would probably be doing quite well within your garden. But we'll start over here with alfalfa meal. Most people in this garden are using alfalfa pellets, which is just simply horse feed. We highly recommend that you don't use one that has grass in it. It should only be alfalfa. Otherwise, you could be incorporating Bermuda or other kinds of grasses in there, which is going to become a weed for you. So this one is has vitamins in it. It has, I believe, it's vitamin K is what's the best thing for the plants. But it's basically a 2.5 by 1/2 by 2.5 nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash. Crab meal, we are using it mostly for its calcium, even though it does have 4% nitrogen and it has 3% phosphorus, but we're using it for calcium because most everybody's growing tomatoes, and we know that we can have blossom end rot and do get blossom end rot, so this one incorporated in the ground is going to help eliminate blossom end rot. The main reason why we use it. We're also finding out that if you have root knot nematode, which there has been some experience with that, this is the known cure for root knot nematode. And then of course fish meal is equal to fish emulsion. The only difference is this is an organic. Then the next one is azomite. And a lot of people call azomite rock dust or minerals or whatever, and actually that is what it's for. It has trace minerals in it, and that is to remineralize your soil. So after years and years of use, it just stands to reason that those minerals are going to deplete from the ground. So it's time to put a little bit more in, and it doesn't hurt to put more in every single year. The brochure that we get on azomite is that it has 72 different minerals that you're adding. They don't say that on here. They only give the specific, but it has a lot of minerals in it. So you're really adding an awful lot back into the ground. So the last one in the boxes here is humic acid, and that's just basically leonardite. That will help acidify the ground should you have any kind of a alkaline problem. But so far here at the garden and in the Payson area, we don't have alkaline problems. We're pretty much right on neutral or close or a little bit acidy. So, but humic acid puts a lot of microbes back into the ground and just makes the ground more efficient. As a liquid, I didn't bring any other liquids, but good old seaweed extract. And this is better than emulsion because this is just strictly seaweed, and it basically has a small amount of nitrogen, and potash is what its main focus is. There are a lot of people who only use this in their garden, and there are others who just use it as a supplement. And hydroponically, there's several people who are just using this hydroponically and nothing else. That keeps them organic. So down here we have just a straight, this is a mixture of organics. Usually it's blood meal and bone meal and all of those things that we had talked about all mixed together. We like this one real well because it has mycorrhiza in it, which is a soil bacteria, and it has many different ones in there, which really helps in root production, and it's just a darn good fertilizer. So it's part of a blend that I put together, which you can find on the website, the Payson Community Garden website, also at Plant for Nurseries website. Then the last one, which a lot of folks are looking for, just a long-term source of phosphorus, which would then be soft rock phosphate. So it's not one that's like bone meal, which is used fairly quickly and then slowly runs out. Because it is rock, it slowly depletes, and it gives you a good source of long-term phosphorus. And with that, we'll go back over to the garden plot again. So here we are back at the garden plot again, and since it had come out to be pretty much 50-50 with the compost to the with the dirt or granite as we have here in the garden, I'm going to add a little bit before we get started. Now this is in February, so technically we're waking up the garden in March. So these that I'm putting on right now, we can plant right away. The idea is to get it in. We always want to put in at least new compost every single year. So when you put compost on, you're putting in live, living microbes, or living soil is what you're creating. And even though this has a lot in it already, and I'm sure it's alive, we want to add more every single year, and sometimes even during the year when we replant, adding more, because our whole purpose is to get our soil alive and organic without using any kind of chemicals. So basically, we like this composted chicken manure, mostly because it doesn't smell real bad. And basically just you can just put it on the garden like so. Then we're going to rake it in, rake it around, get a good even bunch on top, and this is also going to help raise it up a little bit. And then we're going to put on a little bit of this organic compost. Remember, these are all organics. They don't have any chemicals in them. And rake it around. This will also give it fluff, or tilth is an old word, to mix the soil real friable and able to giving the roots something really easy to go in through. Then I like to use this fork, and I just dig in like so, and then go through the whole entire garden like that. You can see that it's pulling up old soil from the bottom and getting the other one mixed in. And this will be done now, and then again just before we plant. And that's how we wake up the garden.
Thank you, Glenn. That was great. I want to thank everybody for their input there. This is the first time we've done these a video like this. It seems that my menu bar was blocking part of the screen, but we'll figure this out as we go and do some more of these videos, because as we're doing these programs, I know we'll do some more. Getting that soil nice and rich and friable, good stuff there, Glenn.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good work. And one thing I was thinking about, people not familiar with community garden, when we got started, there were all those piles of compost and manure and stuff in the back of the garden. People put that in their gardens to help build it up, because much of Payson, people have decomposed granite for their soil. So it takes all those good things that you were showing to be able to create a soil that you can grow vegetables in Payson. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. You know, that whole garden was, before we did anything on it, that was just a big granite field. There was absolutely no organic in there at all. And Roger Creemeyer came to me after he had discussed with the churches about whether they could put a garden on that granite rock. They came to me and said, "Do you think we could grow vegetables in this granite?" And I said, "Well, one of the things you want to do is dig a hole about 2 by 2, fill it full of water, and if it drains out in a reasonable amount of time, like 1 to 2 hours, you can grow it in there. It just has to have drainage. You just have to add organic." So that's exactly what we did. Plant Fair itself did donate semi-loads of organic compost to be mixed into those soils. Plus, people brought their favorite bag stuff to go in there also. So what was a big granite pile of granite turned into some pretty nice ground. There's nothing wrong with granite. It has lots of minerals in it. It just doesn't have anything organic. That's what we had to add.
And it drains very well, so you need something to help hold the water in place too.
Exactly.
Okay. Another thing I think people joining us with will be appreciative of. People will appreciate that this is all organic. We really try to, you don't use pesticides, you don't use other fertilizers, chemical fertilizers. It's an organic garden. And so to have good success in Payson and in Arizona being organic is just good for our health. Any comments you want to make about that before I go to questions? Can you hear me still?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I was just commenting on the garden being organic and using organic material.
Right. So, of course, we don't want to use synthetics because, we know that synthetics do nothing for the soil. So when you put on chemical fertilizers, the plant actually can't tell the difference between a chemical nitrogen, for instance, and an organic nitrogen, but the soil can. So if there's nothing in there to make it alive, all it does basically is feed that plant. And there's lots of controversy about how bad chemicals are for the ground and how it doesn't hurt it. And some people say it does, it kills the ground. And we do know that farmland in the Midwest has lost a lot of its life basically because of chemicals. And we know that they grow tons and tons of produce, but that's all grown with just simply by putting the NPK on there, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash, plus other things, sulfur, for instance. Those are all things that just keep the plants going. Our object is to have ground that will grow plants, living ground, good live ground. If you could see down in there, you'd see tons and tons of microbes and that sort of thing, all teeming around in there.
That's exactly what the plants love. Yeah, living soil. So
the other thing about the garden too is when Pastor Ritchie, who is the pastor for the Church of Nazarene, which owns the property and very generously lets the garden use it for free, he said you can use it, but no chemicals. He didn't want it to be contaminated with chemicals for the next use, you know, someday when the garden's gone. So very nice of him and very wise.
very good. Then I'm going to jump into the questions. It seems like this is working very well here, Glenn. And Gus and Connie have asked, what do you add if potash is low?
That would be muriate of potash or that lingonite, which was in the box, the brown box. That one also has sulfur, magnesium, but its main use, it has like 22% potash. And there's also, we also do muriate of potash, which is controversial. Some people say, well, that's more than mined, it's processed, therefore it may not be organic, but it's about 60% potash. So we still recommend the lingonite. That one's the best.
And you don't need a lot of potash, I don't think. And
no, but
once you put it in, it probably lasts a while.
It does last. You can probably overdo it, but potash is a very important element in the plant health. Good, strong stems and leaf production is what that potash does.
Good. And John Little just wanted to confirm, what is the brand of the boxes? So what were some of those brands that you were talking about?
All those in that box is, those are all Down to Earth. That's the name of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And they are so proud of their product that you can even compost the box.
Okay, good, perfect. and if you're from outside of Payson and Star Valley, you can come down to Glen's nursery and you can find all these products. Right. John also asks, when would you be waking up the garden in the Flagstaff area? So, you know, a little higher elevation.
Well, you're probably about a month behind us. So we usually, this is a little early. Normally we have this class in March, the first week of March. And so you're probably looking at the first week of April to begin digging in. Your coldest weather should be gone by then. And then it's time to start digging in and doing similar to what we did in the video, getting it all turned in, get your compost in or whatever your favorite products are to put in. Probably too early to plant some things, but cold hardy things like you could, even at that time, you could put in peas, you could put in broccoli cap, all the brassicas, even though we do recommend those are planted in August for fall production. But with your shorter season, you may want to do those in the spring also.
Very good. Valerie says, she's asked, will this be available to view later? And yes, all of these are being recorded. They're going to be posted to the Cooperative Extension YouTube channel, and I'm going to make those available at my webpage in Gila County, and we can share those with the Payson Community Garden, Plant Fair Nursery, so that we can just make these available where people can find it. Great info. Not started to take notes when he was going over various supplements to add in each purpose. So you'll want to go over that again to get some of those details. So they'll be available. Cheyenne says you did not talk too fast.
Thank you. Bless your heart.
And Susan just confirmed, should we turn the soil now? I'm in Payson and say, yes, that's what the whole video was about. Go ahead and start turning your soil over and working materials in. Okay, Frank asks, how big was the plot? Can we do a square foot garden? So why don't you talk a little bit about those plot sizes at the garden and why that's being used and just some of the ideas on that.
Oh, sure. The garden the original garden plots were 6 by 25, and they were not, they didn't have wood around. They were not like a raised bed or a confined bed. But we found out that through digging, they kind of sloughed off into the aisles, and the aisles got shorter, and Over time, most everybody began putting in wood around them just to kind of define where those 6 foot by 25 foot gardens were. The main reason why they were 25 foot was because soaker hoses, which is used a lot in the garden, come in 25 foot lengths. So that would accommodate that without cutting them up or trying to figure out how to make them work within the garden. My particular garden is actually 4 6x6 gardens, and I do that so that I can irrigate different plants at different rates. And a lot of folks have split them up. Some just use the whole garden and figure out how to irrigate them like they would. Those are all personal taste and personal preference. So that's how they do that. The other thing that is really great about the garden is the 30-inch tall 4 foot by 4 foot boxes. And those are for handicapped. And those were designed specifically so that if you're in a wheelchair, you could come right up to that garden and garden right over the side of your wheelchair. And I think we've only actually had one wheelchair person who did it, but he just had a ball. It was very, very successful in his garden. He and his mom came in there all the time and just really took good care of the garden. And it was really neat to see a person in a wheelchair have a place that he could produce his own produce.
That's great. And yeah, that 6 feet wide, it just makes it accessible. I mean, any wider than that, and it kind of gets hard to get to the middle. So those, I think it's a really good shape, really good. A lot of thought went into that to 6 by 25. It works really
6 foot by 25. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jane is asking, can you use the black gold or manure from the piles at the back, Glen, or easier to buy compost? So a little bit about specifically the garden there.
In my opinion, you can use anything. If that compost back there is ready to go, absolutely use that. There's just it's all personal taste. I know gardeners that are outside of the garden that they only use their own compost. They do all their vegetable trimmings. They're maybe a small lawn. They use their grass clippings. They use everything that they cut around their property and throw them in compost bins, and they never buy a bag, darn it. But anyway, but they're very, very successful, and that's all you need. All you're trying to do is keep that soil alive. The roots just love to go through good dirt and compost and living soil. That's how you get good production.
And yeah, and Jane did confirm, it's easier to buy the bags as well as support your local nurseryman.
Well, we really appreciate that. And but the bag material has so much more in it. We have composted mulch now that they've added 15% chicken manure. They've added kelp meal and bone meal and blood meal and feather meal and just all kinds of stuff within that bag. That you don't have to use a lot of different bags. You just use that one bag, and that really gets your garden alive.
Good. And Jerry is asking, where might we take a soil sample for an extensive test that the example shown might not? So I think what she's looking for is a soil test that might be more detailed. Do you sell other kits, or should you go to a laboratory?
Yeah, the best thing is just go to a laboratory. We have used IAS, which is down in Phoenix, right near the airport. If you're looking for a phone number or an address, we have their cards at the nursery. It's just a service to you. We don't make anything on it. We don't, we know that they've done a lot of soil testing, mostly a lot of farmland, and for years. And so we recommend them. I'm sure there are others around, but it's not that bad. I think you're looking at somewhere around $50 to have a complete test done.
Okay, so yeah, so you go to a laboratory if you want to get more detail. Glen, what was the name of the GNB product that you mentioned was good as an all-around fertilizer?
That's just called vegetable and tomato. I think it's tomato and herb food. And that comes in that small bag like I showed. It also comes in a 12-pound bag and a 25-pound bag. But that one, I think it's a 5-pound, either a 4 or 5-pound, that small one, that will cover, that should cover your garden one time.
Good. We are getting great questions here. They just keep on coming, Glenn. As I was telling you earlier, we will stop the presentation at noon. As long as you're willing to stay, we'll try to answer these questions out.
Sure.
But,
You bet.
we've got lots of good questions here. So one person is asking, what would you recommend for soil mixes for container growing and starting seeds? Do you customize it for different plants or use the same general mix? So container and seed starters.
To me, I just use just a good general mix. So if I'm going to start seeds, I just use a fine potting soil, which we like the G&B brand because they've been around for as long as I have, and they've kind of got all that down, the particulars all down. So as long as it's fine, so that the seed doesn't have to move big sticks around to come out of the ground, as far as your seeds are concerned, that's what I would do. As far as brands or whatever to mix in the soil, I think anything. Several times people have asked me, well, what do I use at my house? And the truth is, I just take the broken bags of whatever I have home, and that's what I use. I don't use specifics unless I have a specific. For instance, if I wanted to grow rhubarb, we know that rhubarb takes a real acidy soil. In that case, I wouldn't just use anything. I would use a product that will acidify the soil. And but in general, when we're just talking about vegetables, they're all need somewhere between 6 and 8 actually to grow good produce here. Most of those we're just asking that organic just to basically become an organic in the ground and to make it good soft and give those roots someplace to go.
Great. And just a good quality potting mix for starting seeds.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, the next question is the calcium in crab meal that helps with root knot nematode or something else. Our soil tests say we have high calcium, so we are avoiding putting more in.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're showing a high calcium level, you don't need calcium. The only thing that you may want to do is if your pH is way off, that can lock up nutrients, and you may have calcium in there, but if your pH is either too acidy or too alkaline, that can lock that calcium where the plant can't use it, and then you still may get blossom end rot. So if that's the case, even though you got a lot, I would just balance your pH. So just do that one pH test and just see what you have, and then just go from there. If it's right on 6, your calcium will not be locked up, and you should be just fine. Don't use it. If you have root knot nematode, I would just put that crab meal specific to where you saw the root knot nematode rather than through your whole entire garden, and then use your tomatoes in another part of the garden.
All right, well, good advice. I didn't know about that crab meal. Sounds great, because just like you said, blossom end rot on our tomatoes is very common. So good stuff. Brenda asked, will there be a list on the website? It was a list of the products. It was difficult to see the labels and hear the name, and so she can go to Star Valley Nursery, or our Plant Fair Nursery in Star Valley for that. I can also, when I post the website, the recording, I can attach a PDF with it. I can add some links to it. So Glenn, if you want to share those products, I can make sure it gets posted with that information.
Absolutely, sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
Valerie asks, just same type of thing. They just want to be able to follow up a lot of information. Frank wants to know, can we use ashes from the fireplace? What do you think?
That's a really good one, and often I forget to talk about ashes. You want to use fireplace ash at a real limited quantity, because like one winter's ash from clean out, depending, of course, on the kind of wood you burn, you can literally poison that ground. You can get way too much of that in there. And so I would use it as real limited. Like if you burn pine, which we don't recommend that because you burn your house down, but if you do, it's a lot of creosote. And creosote is not fun for plants, so you don't want to use that at all. But if you're using like juniper, the typical things, I would say a limited amount, maybe like a dust over top of the garden, and then dig that in, and maybe do that no more than once or twice a year. That'd be fine.
Just a dusting, but don't dump your ashes out in the garden.
Yeah, that's right. If you're cleaning once a week, that's way too much to put in the garden.
That's a good question. So people can run into trouble on that one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Gara asks, if just starting a raised garden, would you use the same products?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the only time that you would, like, if you're trying to stay organic, all of these products are going to work in your raised bed. If you're going to use chemical type fertilizers, they always have some form of salt, and over a period of time you can build salt up to where that would be not to the advantage of the plant. Then you may find yourself digging that out and putting all new dirt or soil or a mixture all back in there again.
Yeah. Those products you showed are just perfect for her raised garden.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So Frog lives in Pine, asking about the hardiness zone, wants to grow vegetables in a container garden in a pot. I think we already got this question. Any tips on the right soil? You just talked about.
Yeah, I would just use a regular potting soil.
Yep.
The same potting soil you would use for everything. We like, of course, when we select what we sell, we're lousy business people. We're not looking at the soil in terms of how much money we can make. We're looking at those soils as what kind of success will you have in your garden. And then of course we need to make enough money to pay the bills. But so we recommend that GMB potting soil. It's right full of organic fertilizers. There's no chemicals in it. You can pour that right into your pot and plant your tomato or your chard or spinach or seed out some radishes. I mean, there's just about everything can be grown in a pot. The only thing we probably don't recommend would be things like cabbage and cauliflower and those kind of plants that get huge. They can outgrow a pot pretty fast and you may not get good production, but those smaller plants, they're all good. Even squashes, maybe not the vine type, but definitely like zucchini, which makes a bush, great for a pot. Better in the ground, but great for a pot.
Great ideas. Gus and Connie, do you recommend a certain brand of seeds?
I don't. I'd say anywhere you got it. Again, we choose our seed because we believe in Lake Valley. They have their own greenhouses they grow them in. They grow seed in valleys where where open pollinated varieties can't be contaminated. And they've been good quality seed and we've been selling them for years. But certainly, there's just a lot of different seeds out there. And I would say go for your whatever you've had good success with. That's where I'd stay. Very
good. Rachel, when do you wake up your garden in Coles Ranch? Now too, right?
Yeah, you're the same as us.
Yeah.
So you're maybe just a little bit colder down there along that creek, because we know, especially here at the nursery, We know all about how cold drains, and when we can be 5 to 10 degrees colder than what they say it is in Payson, it's because all of Payson's cold is draining down through the nursery, and where you are is the same. The little mountains around there are all following, all their cold is following right along that Tonto Creek. So you're going to be just a little bit colder, but still waking it up, it's time.
Yeah, same type of thing up in the pine straw area as well. They're in that canyon, gets that cold air.
Right.
Yeah. Frank asked, how big was the plot you used? The plot is 25 feet long by 6 feet wide.
That's right.
And Carol asked, if I added manure and compost this past fall, do I need to add more in the early spring? So kind of timing that. That's a good question.
Well, you know, you really, if you added enough, you really shouldn't have to. As a matter of fact, it's been sitting there alive all winter long. It's been composting, which is ideal. It's pretty much what you want in that garden. I do just like I did in the video, just stick your hand down in there and feel if it feels real fluffy and light, and you see the organic in there. You don't have to do anything else. You're ready. The only thing I would do is I would hold putting the fertilizer, that organic fertilizer, on there until you actually plant, and then dust your fertilizers around the plant itself, cultivate it a little bit so the water can take it on down. That'll be the best use for your organic food. And then if you put enough manure and compost in there, you should be good.
Good deal. Next question. Linda asks, how do you manage aphids in the garden?
You know, aphids are just they have got to be the signature insect for this area. You know, they just, as soon as the green comes out, they're there. I don't know where they're hiding. Organically, the very best thing for organically is just a spray of a high pressure spray of water and knock them off. And the only problem with that, you will have to do that often. But if you're tending your garden and you're out there daily or every other day or so, you're going to see them in there, and you just take your hose and just wash it off. Not so high pressure that you damage the plant, but enough to just wash them down. If that's not working for you, there are a lot of home remedies that work. We personally sell like neem oil, which works real well, and certainly could recommend that. We're going to be having Ladybugs again in May, and Ladybugs is a real good organic way to do it, and they're fun. So probably Ladybugs, they'll eat their weight in aphids right away. You can just sit there and watch them eat the aphids. So and that's a good way to do it. So you're either way, but I would start with just spray them down and get them off the plant.
They can be real nuisances for sure. Jennifer, go ahead. Okay, Jennifer wants to know, what day is the garden opening to get started? So is the Payson Community Garden open?
It is not open. Somebody who is there all the time would be better to answer that. Maybe in the chat they could come up with the exact date. It's the first week of March. Probably the first Saturday in March is probably when it's going to be open. That's when it's opened in the past.
So first Saturday in March. And
Yep.
like you're saying, normally, okay, so I've got a question from Lenny down in Globe, and he's asking about when would you be waking up the garden in Globe? And I'm going to say right now, you know, you could have gotten sooner, but really, if we follow what we're learning in the Payson Community Garden, for those of us down in Globe, we are right on time. Maybe some of those cool season plants we could get started, but I think our warm season plants, we're going to learn a lot and be in good shape just following this series. So good question, Lenny. Thank you. Kathleen, how would you do compost in place and when?
If you mean compost like in the garden.
Yeah, she's got compost in place in quotes.
So if you're doing it right in the garden, you would just continue to add to that particular place. You know, if you're going to put it into the garden, some folks are doing that. But don't forget that while you have raw wood, I guess you could call it, from the vegetables or the vegetable material itself, when it's composting, it is using nitrogen. It's going to give you nitrogen, but it's using nitrogen when it's raw, especially the more woody it is. So I do know that I can't pronounce the word, but there's Hugo
culture.
There you go, Hugo culture, yeah. And that puts a whole lot down in the bottom and then puts compost on top or soil on top and then grows in it, and then it composts automatically underneath of where you're actually growing. And so that that in place is working real well. If you just put it on top of the ground and allow it to slowly compost, it needs nitrogen and it needs like vegetables or manures or whatever. So you would have to lay that on top of it, and that would work all right, but it would probably have to be spaced out. Your plants would have to be spaced out enough so that that could work while your plants are growing. So that would be, it would be okay, but I think it would be difficult.
And there are some practitioners of that in the community, and if I can get their names and they're willing to give a presentation about it, we can pick that up sometime later in the year. But it's a different practice. We tend to promote compost piles, but yeah, anything we can do. I've seen that Hoover culture before. It needs to be down deep, but good, neat ideas. Okay, moving along here. Anita just confirms that the 4x8 elevated boxes work very well for disabilities, the challenged areas. So that works out well. And we already answered Susan there. Okay, do we use straw in the chicken coop pine shavings for the compost? So, you know, the straw and the pine shavings that they're using, those are all good sources of a carbon for their composting. Would you agree?
Yes. You know, that one you would have to start in a compost pile, because when you have raw shavings, the beauty of it is mixed with chicken manure. That's going to help it compost, but I wouldn't use it straight. I would mix other materials in with it so that it could kind of compost down with other material that might compost easier. Straw is, it takes a while for it to compost down. It does, but it takes a while. And it uses a lot of nitrogen trying to get that done. And so will raw shaving. So all mixed together with your other, whether it's vegetable peelings from the kitchen, clippings from the lawn, or whatever else you're using, or other vegetables as you're harvesting them, those leaves can all go in there. All of those mixed together should make a good compost. It just takes a little longer. With the harder the wood, the more, I guess, sinuous the wood is, the longer it takes.
And you can put the eggshells and put it into your compost also.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just good. That's good calcium. Yeah, you could actually use all those. Again, that takes longer to break down. So you may have your regular leafy material breaking down. And if you pick it up with your hand, you may still see some remnants of shells in there. Doesn't hurt a thing. It just takes them longer to compost.
Right. Frank also asked about using the worms from Walmart. And I don't know if he's talking about the fishing worms, but you wouldn't want night crawlers. You'd want red wigglers. So where would people get red wigglers?
Well, my understanding is Circle K sells them as fishing worms, the red wigglers, as well as the crawlers. Actually, they both work real well on the ground, but the true cultivator is the red wiggler. The other one, the night crawler, it makes like a main hole, but it still eats and it just goes right through the body and out the back and gives you good worm castings, where the wigglers just really cultivate. The other thing is online on the internet. I know everybody's sick of hearing, well, just go online, but you can get I think it's a couple of thousand for like $20 they'll send to you. And that's probably the best place to get red wigglers. We do have an individual in Payson who is in the process of making a worm farm, and we'll have them for sale. I understand. I don't know whether it's going to be this summer or maybe in the fall, but they're working on it. So we may have a local source.
That's great. Glenn, we are at the top of the hour. I'm going to run my closing slides, but everybody who's here, please hang on. We're going to go ahead and go through the questions. We still got lots of questions, Glenn, if you
can, we're fine.
Hang in there. Okay, so let me get the slides up here. Okay, so we've been listening to Glen Mccombs' presentation about the Payson Community Garden and Wake Up Your Garden. Great questions. So thank you very much, Glenn. In that webinar, in the chat box, I put a webinar evaluation. It's way up at the top. I will enter it again so it's down where you could find it. But if you can go into that evaluation link, it's only 1 to 2 minutes. Helps you out with evaluating the program, improving it, and finding out what else we can do. We've just gone through our question and answer discussion with Glenn, and great stuff. Thank you so much. When you get somebody like Glenn to ask all these questions to, you just know you're getting the right answers. And so here's our closing slide. Over the next several weeks here, we are hosting the Payson Community Gardens Spring Gardening Class Series from Thursday, February 11th today through April 15th. You can find a schedule at extension.arizona.edu/HELA. So you can see what's coming up. I'll continue to post that to our email listserv, and please go ahead and enter your email address into the chat box, and I can get you on there if you want, if that's what you want. Next week, we will have Susan Miller Hoover. She is part of the Payson Community Garden. She's one of the gardeners there, and she's going to follow this up with getting your garden started. So thank you so much, everybody. At this time, I'm going to